1.0 The ambiguity of the word know. The term know is ambiguous. Sometimes it refers to awareness of objects, as in, I know Smith. But oftentimes it refers to awareness of truths, as in, I know that snow is white. Other languages use different verbs to mark this difference. For example, in Spanish, when one speaks of knowing people, one uses the verb conocer, and when one speaks of knowing truths, one uses the verb saber. German also uses different words to mark this distinction: kennen for knowing people, and wissen for knowing truths. Russian does not. It is like English and uses one verb, znat, for awareness of both people and truths. This last fact is suggestive. If English were the only language that had just one word for both kinds of awareness, its doing so would be a mere idiosyncrasy, a random fact about one language that didn't reveal anything inherent in human thought. But the fact that other languages do the same thing suggests that there is a general tendency not to distinguish these two very different kinds of knowledge. We will find that, in fact, this tendency of ours has a solid epistemological basis and is therefore not a logical faux pas. However counterintuitive it may seem, knowledge of people is, we will find, knowledge of truths. 1.1 The philosophical meaning of the word know. In philosophy, when we talk about knowledge, we are primarily, but not exclusively, concerned with knowledge of truths. Nonetheless, we will find that the distinction between knowledge of truths on the one hand and knowledge of individuals on the other is of great importance. We will find later that the word know is actually ambiguous in additional ways. For example, psychologists and philosophers often talk about procedural knowledge. Any case of anyone's being able to do anything is a case of procedural knowledge. My ability to play the piano is a case of procedural knowledge. So is my ability to speak English, and so is my ability to tie my shoes. Many deny that procedural knowledge is bona fide knowledge. This is the exact opposite of the truth. What the virtuoso knows procedurally, the incompetent neophyte knows only discursively. As it deepens, knowledge becomes increasingly proceduralized. Non-procedural knowledge is poorly integrated knowledge. It is knowledge that hasn't yet established the links to other pieces of knowledge that are needed to mobilize it. Procedural knowledge is knowledge that is sufficiently well integrated to have established these links. It is therefore indefensible to hold that procedural knowledge is non-knowledge. We'll say more about this in section 9.3. We'll find that the word know has meanings additional to those already discussed. But for the time being, when the word know is used, assume that it is referring to knowledge of truths unless there is an explicit indication to the contrary. It should be pointed out that even though, for the reasons given, the word know seems to have many meanings, some philosophers maintain that ultimately all knowledge is identical with knowledge of truths. In other words, that awareness of objects and also procedural knowledge, along with the other kinds of knowledge that we will talk about, are ultimately just different ways of knowing truths. But this is extremely controversial.